what you saw down there, though?
I just remember seeing blood on the floor, the bottom of the stairs. That's all I can remember.
Today, you'll see how a burned metal trunk, a runaway mother, and a 16-year silence blew a murder case wide open.
All that I can remember, and just give you as much truth and facts that I had. So that is why I told you about Chris.
Well, that's the thing, yeah, because you were, that's why I wanted to ask you about it, because I want to be fair to you, because you told me a lot of...
And tore a family apart at the same time.
Pray that the truth comes out and my mom finally gets what she deserves. And me and Chris don't suffer this.
On May 8th, 2022, a man in Grand Haven, Michigan found a burned metal footlocker on his blueberry farm. Inside was the mutilated corpse of a man he could not identify. Police arrived on the scene to collect the body. According to court reports, the corpse had been burned so badly that it was hard to make out all of his injuries. But it was clear he had suffered severe head trauma, injuries consistent with hammer blows. The damage from the fire meant that medical examiners couldn't correctly identify the body. For more than a decade, the man in the footlocker was simply known as the Jack-in-the-Box case. But all that changed in 2015, when Ottawa County Police received the tip-off that changed everything. A young woman named Sicily Caraballo emailed them claiming that the John Doe dumped on the blueberry farm was her father, Roberto Caraballo, who had gone missing when she was just 9 years old. Sicily's suspicions were right. A study of dental and federal prison records showed that the corpse was Roberto Caraballo. At the time of his death, he was 37 years old and living in Charlotte, a town nearly 100 miles away from Grand Haven. Police finally had the victim's name, and soon they would have the names of 3 people suspected of killing Roberto Caraballo in a planned homicide. But who were these people, and how did Roberto's body end up in that burned metal trunk? The victim, Roberto Caraballo, was an immigrant from the Dominican Republic living illegally in the United States. He'd previously been involved in a family drug trafficking business. According to a missing persons report filed by his niece, Roberto's extended family believed for years that he had been murdered because of his criminal ties, and that they had previously refused to report him missing out of fear of retaliation. But they couldn't have been more wrong. His legal name is Roberto, but you'll hear him referred to as both Roberto and Robert throughout this video. Roberto had been married to a woman named Beverly McCallum, with whom he shared 2 stepdaughters, Daine, Tasha, and one biological daughter named Sicily. The email Sicily sent to the police included her recollection of that night, which can be found in court documents relating to the case. Sicily remembered being rushed in the middle of the night and placed into the family's van along with Tasha, the defendant, Daine, and Beverly. They traveled in the van for quite some time, and Sicily eventually fell asleep in the back seat. She later testified that she next remembered waking up to an explosion. When she looked out the back window of the van, she saw the defendant running from a burning wooded area, trying to catch up with the moving van. After that, Sicily went back to sleep. The next morning, when she woke up at her house, Sicily noticed that Roberto's personal belongings were missing, and there was a padlock on the basement door. Sicily never saw Roberto again, and was told that he had left the family and gone to Canada. She found it strange that Roberto's vehicles were still in the driveway. Sicily's initial call, as well as further details found during the reopened investigation, led police to identify their first suspect in the case, Roberto's wife, Beverly. But they didn't act quickly enough, because when Beverly McCallum heard that police were looking into Roberto's disappearance, she fled the country, first to Italy, then to Pakistan, and again to Italy to avoid the investigation. It all but confirmed everyone's worst suspicions. Without access to their primary suspect, over the next 3 years, detectives would track down and question everyone else they could find who was relevant to the case, including Daine Ducharme, Beverly's eldest daughter and Roberto's stepdaughter, who was 21 years old at the time of Roberto's disappearance. Daine's first interview blasted the case wide open. She told detectives that on May 7, 2002, her mother and Roberto had a violent argument in the basement of their home. Beverly then returned upstairs and told Daine and her friend, a young man named Chris McMillan, who was visiting at the time, that she had killed Roberto and convinced them to help her drive to Grand Haven to get rid of the body. Daine's initial interview propelled the case forward, but police were suspicious of some of the details of her story. What raised their eyebrows most was the mention of a Chris McMillan, someone who had not come up in their interview so far. But when they finally tracked down Chris McMillan, who had not been in contact with Daine or Beverly since 2002, they realized they were onto something, because Daine and Chris's stories did not line up at all. Instead of corroborating Daine's account, Chris claimed that she and Beverly had planned Roberto's murder together and manipulated him into helping them orchestrate the crime. While we don't have access to police footage concerning Christopher, we do have audio recordings of his meetings with detectives in 2018. In it, he describes how Beverly and Daine had told him that Roberto was physically and sexually abusive to Beverly and her daughters, which was why they wanted him gone. Years later, Chris believed that the abuse was a lie to convince him to help them.
Okay, so
all right, dude. So I was hanging out with her. I guess I thought I might have some kind of shot with her, and that was like all bullshit stories and crap. So I got in with their mother, and we'd go out to the mall with the little kids, and they would steal shit and put them in bags, and then like load the whole car up with junk. It looked like a gypsy parade in that house. Mm-hmm. Well, she went on, and that the kids were being abused sexually, and dude was always violent and drunk. So
that was her story?
Yeah. They wanted him gone or whatever, and it's pretty much what they did.
Who told you that the kids were being molested and stuff?
Beverly and Daine.
Did you ever see any signs of that?
They acted weird.
They acted weird? How so?
Just skittish.
Okay. Beverly and Roberto, they fight a lot or not fight that much? Or and I'm not looking for I'll tell you right now, I want to hear the truth.
Look, they fought when I was around. They fought when Daine was there and I wasn't. What I understood.
So you get there that evening. Had you been there a while and something happened, or you showed up, or you knew something was gonna?
It felt weird. Like I said, I didn't think they would do it.
How long had they been talking about it?
3 days, maybe.
And their reason for that was what they told you?
Abuse with the girls.
Okay. Beverly complained about abuse with herself?
Yeah, she was abused too. Yeah.
She ever?
No, I remember her crying a whole lot. She had these big ass mascara on spots.
Mm-hmm.
Did Beverly or Daine tell you what they were going to do, or because you said you didn't think that this was actually going to happen?
Right. I just didn't think they would. Didn't think they would do that.
But the days before that, what did they say was going to happen that you didn't think was going to happen?
I wasn't around a lot.
Basically, Chris,
Like that.
are they talking about they're going to teach him a lesson and beat him up, or are they going to do something else?
I'm sure whatever conversations them two had in between themselves is a lot different than the conversations when I was around or
when you were
when I was around one of them.
when you were
So
standing
they already
down there
knew.
going over the plan, though, the plan wasn't to scare him and say boo. The plan wasn't to hit him a couple times and teach him a lesson. The plan was what?
Maybe that's what the rope was for. Maybe they were going to tie him up.
But you had just said that you had some you weren't part of all the conversations,
Right.
but you're part of some. What were those conversations?
Like sitting around the table, you know, after the kids are in bed and just conversating over cards. It's almost like they were planting seeds.
But tell me what you mean by that.
They didn't let me in on everything, that's for sure.
What did they let you in on?
Well, I mean, evidently the kids weren't abused, were they? Were they or weren't they?
That's first we've heard of that. So
Assholes. They played that abuse card on me like a fiddle. And looking back, fucking assholes.
During the interview, Chris came clean about everything, including his direct involvement with the murder. He described how Beverly pushed Roberto down the basement, and then both Beverly and Daine proceeded to beat Roberto around the head with a bat and hammer, before tying a bag around his head. Roberto eventually suffocated to death. While Chris denied physically beating Roberto himself, he did watch everything happen and help them remove the hammer from Roberto's skull before helping to transport the body to Grand Haven.
Well, I mean, basically, I was an accomplice.
okay, how so? Those two had been talking about it.
Well, and then whenever they put a bag on his head too. They had to have help getting him up after that. So they waited until I was there. Probably had that shit planned out to the fucking T. I think a bat. And then it's Daine with a hammer. It's fucking terrible.
Beverly with a bat and Daine with a hammer. Is this something that, I mean, was planned way in advance, or because you mentioned that they were talking about it ahead of time? What was that about?
I came over and I guess they had already had this all planned out, and I was gonna go in the basement
And do what?
and smoke.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, they put him in a f***ing trunk, and you know what they did with him. Alright, so once he was in the f***ing trunk, we took him upstairs and fucking put him in a van, got the girls, drove out somewhere where she f***ing went, off the dirt road, off the box, burnt the box, set on fire, whatever, came back, changed the tires on the f***ing van, so
Chris was sure that Daine had been directly involved in the murder along with her mother. He had seen it with his own eyes, even if his memory was slightly blurred after 16 years. And detectives realized that it was Chris's story that matched the rest of the details in the case. It lined up with the information from other interviews, with evidence found at the scene of the crime, and at the blueberry farm where Roberto's body was burned. Daine's, on the other hand, did not. Since they couldn't yet get access to her mother, Beverly, they had one interrogation left before they took the case to court. Keep in mind, Daine hasn't spoken to her old friend Chris McMillan in 16 years. She gave the police his name in the hopes he would support her side of the story. Walking into his interrogation, she has no idea that she has been pinned to the murder by someone who saw it happen. This is clear from her body language. From the beginning of her interrogation, Daine seems relaxed and lighthearted about the situation she is in, perhaps assuming that her mother will eventually take all of the blame for Roberto's murder. She walks into the interrogation room while in the middle of telling a story to the officers. At this point, it's 2018, 3 years after her first interview about the case, and Daine is now serving a prison sentence in Jacksonville, Florida, for an unrelated crime.
And I was like, really, what did I sing? And he was like, Elvis Presley. I was like, I couldn't tell you one Elvis Presley lyric or song. I was like, that was nothing but the Holy Spirit keeping my body alive, dude, because I had no clue.
Because you didn't know any Elvis.
I had no clue, not one. Still to this day, I don't. And so, anyways, long story short, it was like really, like heart-wrenching. Like, oh my God, thank you so much. But
Holy cow.
it
Let me
was
get a
really
key
weird.
and I'll take those,
Thank
those
you.
off you real
No
quick,
worries.
okay? I'll be right back.
Gotcha.
What was your name, honey?
Ducharme, Daine.
Daine?
Okay.
When the detective finally comes in to question her, Daine is still in social mode. She and this detective already have a rapport with each other based on earlier interviews pertaining to the case. They even spend the beginning of the interrogation catching up and discussing Beverly's disappearance. It allows Daine to enter the interrogation feeling safe and self-assured before the real questioning begins.
Yes, that's serious. So where's your partner Bill? And then Bill?
Bob?
Bob.
Bob retired.
Oh.
Bob left me on my own, so...
Did
but
him get you a new partner yet?
What's it? Well, he was from a different county, remember?
Oh yeah.
I'm from Lansing area, and then
Okay.
he's from Grand Rapids area.
Grand Rapids,
So,
okay.
because he's where
Y'all
it
just
was
got together
found.
because of the case.
Yeah, he's like where it was found, and I'm where it happened.
Oh,
So,
gotcha.
but I'm done. My investigation is...
So what's going on now?
My investigation is over. I am done. I'm like, found out you were here. I was like, I'll stop and talk to her real quick. And
So you were just in Florida?
yeah,
And
Florida
you just found
and
out
Texas.
I was here?
And Texas.
Or
yeah.
you came because I was here?
No.
You just happened to be here. We're like, I know this person?
Yeah, I actually have to be in Texas
Strange.
too. And
Did you
I'm
get
I'm on like a
Mom?
little world tour this year. It seems like I've been going out of state all
Did you
the
make it
time.
to India yet?
Well,
I heard that's where she's at. Somebody said she's in India.
Pakistan.
Pakistan.
She's
Yeah.
in Pakistan. I know where she's
My
at.
sister posted it on Facebook. My middle
Which
sister.
one?
Tasha.
Tasha did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know where she's at, but she probably thinks she's safe there too. But
Did
The detective then shares the big news that Daine hasn't heard yet, that her old friend, Chris, has been found and questioned. The detective approaches the topic casually, not yet letting on how Chris's reappearance is going to affect Daine. What she doesn't know is that this is her final chance to prove that she wasn't involved in the murder.
and I found Chris.
Did you?
I found Chris, and
How's he doing? I'm just curious. He was a good guy.
he is a good guy. He's a really good, I like him. I got along
I
great
love
with
him.
him. He's a
Secretly,
good guy.
that's a guy I fell in love with, and my mom ruined everything.
He's a good egg. I like him, and yeah, I've talked to him quite a few times. Things aren't going the best for him, but that's what some stuff he told me that he shot me pretty straight. I know I did. I know he was. I know he was pretty honest with me.
Did he
but
confirm things that I said?
Well, yeah, some stuff that he told me kind of confused me a little on some stuff, but yeah, I wanted to talk. I mean, I wanted to go over some stuff with you, but tell you some stuff. But before I do that,
Is he
you're in
healthy
custody.
online?
So before we get talking too much,
Okay.
you're in custody. I want to do things the right way.
Once the interrogation begins, the detective takes a careful approach to sharing what Chris told them, taking their time because they know it could set Daine off, that Chris's story implicates her in the murder, and his story is more consistent than hers.
I'll tell you a few things because it kind of confused me. I think he was he'd been waiting for me kind of like for years, you know, he'd been waiting for that knock on the door to come and somebody to ask him about this shit. And he, after a few minutes of us talking, I mean, he just kind of unloaded everything on me. And I won't go into a lot of detail because that's what I'm talking. I don't want to tell you what everything he said because I want to be fair to him. But I'll tell you a few things because it confused me. But yeah, he unloaded his whole story and confessed to being part of everything. And I could see after he did it, this like weight go off his shoulders. Seriously, I mean, it was like he was. I mean, you can see that when you do my job. You can see that a lot of times when people, you know, tell you the real story finally or come clean. It's like, they freaking, you almost see this thing come off them, and then they're like, good, it's over. You know, now I'll move forward. But that's kind of like, I've never seen anybody happen more than it happened with him. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I felt bad for him because he seems like a good dude. Mm-hmm. And maybe got caught up in some stuff that wasn't his deal, but yeah, what he told me painted a pretty clear picture, and I've been looking into this case so long that I knew he was being honest with me because yeah, I mean, it matched everything that I already knew, so I knew he was being pretty honest with me. Yeah, he told me some stuff quite a few things I didn't know too, but the basic part of it was he got it off his shoulders, and I don't know, he's got to deal with it now. I mean, so I was just glad I found him.
Good.
What?
I was just worried that, you know, you wouldn't find him. The one thing like burned into my brain was the last time I seen you. You're like,
well, your DNA wasn't the last time.
I think so, but no. The thing you said was, you better be thinking about what will prove that you didn't do it and your mom did, or something like that. Mm-hmm. Because that right there like burned in my brain, and I was like, oh my god, if you don't find Chris, like my mom is the type of evil bitch that would totally manipulate it around the opposite way.
Daine still seems to believe that Chris will corroborate her side, where her mother is the sole murderer and she and Chris are innocent. But the detective is about to burst that bubble for her.
Well, that's what I'm confused about. That's my biggest thing I'm confused about is why you told me that Chris even existed.
Because me and him were on the couch in the little room off to the side, and that would be the only person that confirmed that I didn't plan, plot, or have anything to do with this. We were sitting in the room, and that was that. I mean, it all just came.
That's the problem.
Like, what the is going on? Like, wait, what just happened?
Daine's stance here has the detectives on the case baffled. Despite having had zero contact with Chris McMillan in 16 years, she was so confident that he would give the police the same story that she pointed them in his direction, even though he's also the only direct witness who can connect her to the crime. Daine took a huge risk by sharing his name with detectives, and they don't understand why.
That's why I asked you that, because he doesn't, don't get me wrong, like he's kind of like you are, like, oh, Chris was a good guy, but and he's like, same way about you, like, oh, I miss her and talk to her, and he like doesn't have like any hard feelings towards you, but I don't know how to explain, but he's not like has any kind of hard feelings towards you or your mom, but he's not happy about the situation he got put into. That's how to describe it. It's weird, but that's not the story. I will say that I won't go into specifics. I'll give you a couple so you know I'm not bullshitting you. Okay, but that's not the story he told. Was the one you said about the couch thing sitting on there. It was quite a bit different story about all three of you kind of being more planned out what was going to happen to Roberto. And that's why I'm like, why did she? And it wasn't like he's like trying to throw everything on you or your mom, or he wasn't like that. That's why I kind of respected him. You know, it was like he just shot me straight, and but I'm like, why the hell did you tell me that he even existed? Because he buried himself. He told me the truth, I think. I think it was the truth.
Well,
Based
I
on what
didn't
I
plot
knew.
or plan to do anything to anybody, and he would be the only one that can confirm that we were sitting there playing the guitar, eating pills, and smoking weed when everything was just like, bam, what the happened? Wait, what?
That's what, like he, you mentioned about, like, you told me about cleaning up before, about your mom wanted to chip up the concrete and stuff.
She was just...
And he said
It's
the same
just so
thing.
much shit, to be honest with you. Like I keep telling you, like, I have spent years doing everything I possibly can to forget.
I believe that.
And not just that, with my injury, it's even more cloudy.
Throughout the interrogation, Daine will refer back to her injury. In between her first interview in 2015 and her interrogation now, she was involved in a serious accident that damaged her leg and caused significant head trauma that she claims has now affected her memory. It's something she continually falls back on when detectives push her for details or point out the contradictions between hers and Chris's stories.
Shit is like more scattered and cloudy than what it was prior to my accident. So from what I know in my heart, and I know that that wasn't something that I ever intended or plotted or planned or whatever. Like that was never... I would not benefit a damn thing from doing that. And I honestly don't intend to hurt or harm or seek out pain to anybody. I really don't. I just do what I can to survive.
I believe that.
I've got some hang-ups, but I'm not a fucking crazy, insane person that's going around vindictively
Same thing with
doing crazy stuff. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I've got some issues, mainly because of that. I like to say that incident kind of forced me to do things that wasn't naturally into my pattern. I was really big into school and, things like that before all that shit happened. And
I think it's the same thing with him, because you look at this guy and I'm like, I wouldn't think he'd hurt a flea. I really wouldn't.
I really don't
But I
even
think
kill
it's-
bugs. You know what I'm saying? It's a really up situation. And from what I can remember, I told you as straight as I could remember, as much as I could remember,
Okay.
straight to you from day one, and for me not to tell you about Chris would just be, why even go there? You know what I mean?
That's what I'm confused
So all I
about.
could do is tell you that there is another person, because y'all were kind of adamant that there wasn't, that it was just me and my mother, and I was like, no, there was. When you came and visited me, I think I had a picture or something with him in like the corner of one of my pageant pictures. And I showed it to you. It was like it just had like a side of his face, a corner of his
that
face.
wasn't him. No, that was somebody else. But yeah, I remember that. But no, I mean, most
Okay.
of what you told me
So
was
it was like,
true.
all I could do is, just be as honest as what I could remember, all that I could tell you, all that I could remember, and just give you as much truth and facts that I had. So that is why I told you about Chris.
Well, that's the thing, yeah, because you were. That's why I wanted to ask you about it, because I wanted to be fair to you, because you told me a lot of truths about that he existed, about his name. I mean, his first name and his last name started with a Mick, you thought.
Yeah.
And he played the guitar, all which is true. I mean, his brother's not in the music business, but
That was what
he
I know.
understood
That's what I was
why
told
maybe
or
you
something.
thought that, because I don't know if you had a friend that was or something, a real good friend. You guys
Somebody's
used to-
house
somewhere
basement.
in
They
his
had
house
like
you
music
went to.
things on the wall,
Yeah.
plaques and gold things.
But no, that's what
records.
you gave me that stuff, and I wanted to be fair to you, because
Right.
I owe you that, because you didn't have to tell me that stuff, and I'm like, then I talked to Chris, I'm like, why did you tell me that stuff? What am I missing? And I wanted to give you a chance to,
Yeah, I really.
and
I
if
never
you're missing
would
something
have
or I'm
plotted
missing
or planned
something,
to do anything, especially to Roberto. I mean,
well, I know
as
that.
crazy as it sounds, as fucked up as my family has been, there's nothing and no reason as a child who has seeked out her father why I would want to take a father from one of my siblings. I have suffered so much in my life not to have a father, or my biological father.
Now, Daine pivots back to her mother, Beverly. It's clear to everyone that Beverly was the driving force behind Roberto's murder, and Daine knows that continually pointing the focus back to her and her abusive personality is one of the only approaches she still has.
So it's just against
Just
everything.
like we said though, you're not the type of person that's gonna go out. I gotta worry about killing somebody every weekend for your kicks.
It's
but
just
welcome to my job, because 95% of the people I
you
deal
come in
with
contact too. Yeah,
are people that normally wouldn't do something they did, but because of circumstances or because of a lifestyle they're having right then, or just a situation
no.
they get thrown into. No, I'm serious. That's what happens to 95% of people.
Yeah. Well,
that
my
are
mother
in
is not that breed.
Your mom is not that person.
Okay.
You're right.
Yeah, my mom is
Your
not
mom-
that breed. My
your
mom
mom
would
is
do
not.
anything and everything, and to anyone, no matter what it takes. And that is something I had to cope with, and maintain sanity behind my entire life. And even not being in this country, she finds ways to still me and over me, and she'll send out my sister after me, or that's why we came here. It was like it was nonstop. We couldn't get away from it. Then Tasha becomes vindictive. Oh, then she wants to set my car on fire, flatten all my tires. It's just a nonstop bullshit, all constant shit. You know what I'm saying? Oh, well, you should try talking to your mother sometimes. And I was like, I have nothing to say to our mother. There's nothing I want to say to our mother. Why would I talk to her?
Right.
Sicily, same thing. Why don't you talk to mom? I was like, I don't want to talk to mom, Sicily. The only time you or Tasha should ever contact me is if you're contacting me to let me know my mother is dead. Other than that, I have nothing to say to y'all anymore. Nothing.
You don't talk to your mom. When's the last time you talked to your mom? Right after we were there? First time?
Right after my grandmother passed, inside the mosque thing.
So you haven't talked to her since we first met?
Mm-mm. When I spit in her face at the mosque, that was the last time I talked to her. When she buried my grandmother, that was Catholic nun, in a Muslim cemetery next to Ahmed Abdul. You got a Mary Cross Maglicetti. Her middle name is Cross.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. You're not the only member of your family that feels that way.
She is supposed to be in the Hudson River with my grandfather. It was in her will since 1985.
Yep, I remember all that, and I just wonder if you'd just for any reason.
No, there is no reason. In fact, when I spoke to you guys and I was going through all that tizzy in Galveston, it was mainly because my mother had injected herself into my marriage. That's why I was in such a turmoil of chaos of what was going on between me and my husband. When y'all first seen y'all came and down there,
right.
And I was like packing and moving and all of that.
Yep.
Yeah, that is because my mother injected herself into our marriage, and ever since then it was like I spoke to y'all and it was like maybe finally, maybe just maybe, I won't have to be haunted by her any longer.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's
Or,
not the case because I'm still here.
Or well, I don't consider you a haunt. I consider
What's
you
that?
I don't consider you a haunt. I consider you more of a path to resolving this.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do. I am, like I said, I'm not lying to you. I'm all done with my
Yes, sir.
with my
Yeah,
stuff.
totally
It's all
get it.
completely done, and that's what that was my biggest thing, was I didn't know why you gave me the information you did on Chris. Some of it wasn't right, but I don't know if that's because you were choosing for it not to be right, or if you were actually just mistaken because it's been so long.
I gave you everything.
I give
could as straight
you,
as
I give
could
you the benefit of
remember.
the doubt and say, yeah, it's been a while. It's probably nobody remembers everything,
And honestly, I have done enough drugs and everything to attempt to forget all that. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was my main goal.
Yep, and
Is to black that shit out as fast as I could, if possible, which it's not possible.
The detective begins to gently apply pressure. It's time to tell her, in detail, that her story doesn't line up with Chris's. Still, she sticks to her story.
no,
It's not possible, no matter how
I think
much you
Chris
do.
has tried to do the same stuff, try to block it, and the more we talk, the more stuff that he remembers, but yeah, a lot of this stuff doesn't look good for you. It doesn't shine a good light on you from what you told me the first time. It's more of a I do remember you saying something about, which I know is true, that Roberto, because when he got out of jail, you know, he's reading his Bible all the time, and he had a real problem with your lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so Chris had to act like he was your, you know, boyfriend and stuff, and so I know that was, and he didn't want you around much because of that. But and then your mom, she's got her own reasons for what she does, you know. But and
So what is the end verdict of your case, or whatever?
well, that's what I'm just trying to see if there's anything else that you want to tell me that I've got wrong. That I mean, because Chris painted more of a, it was more of a plotted out kind of story that your mom kind of spearheaded and was very much not. Because when you told me the story, it was like, sounded like they were kind of arguing, and he went downstairs, and she just was flipping out, right? And
She had been flipping out for weeks.
Right.
I mean, I
well,
really
it sounds like she always
tried
flips
to
out.
avoid her.
And
And I was stuck there because I had broke my foot. There was nothing else I could really do but stay on the couch, hope I got better faster, and could get the out of there, back to work, and get the out of there.
well, that's what. And Chris doesn't remember you having a broken foot. He said he had one. He said he had an air cast on. Do you remember that?
Yeah, he did have an air
So,
cast.
like,
Yeah.
just so you know, I actually talked to him. And I
No,
said,
no,
"You're bullshitting you."
I
So,
believe you.
But I could see it fall off a roof or something.
Yeah.
Remember?
St. John's Hospital has my medical records of it, though.
Okay. And you signed a waiver thing, a medical waiver thing for me, but I found him and thought you were mistaken, or I was, or something like that, because he had the cast on, he said. And like I said, I know how time goes by and people screw stuff up, and but yeah, the story he told was more of a plotted out thing that you and your mom approached him with. Do you remember any reason though why
I
you
never
would?
approached him with that. Never, not ever.
And I don't want to spoon feed you everything, but do you remember any reason you ever told him why maybe you or your mom, not counting that he didn't like your lifestyle, another reason why you guys would want Roberto on there?
I never said anything like that. I have no clue. I never approached him like that, ever. Not ever. Now, my mother,
Maybe your
I
mom-
don't know if my
maybe your
mom
mom
did.
did.
I have no clue if my mom did. If she did, what she would even say, to be honest with you. Now, I know I didn't.
You never
I
say
would,
anything about it?
I would never do something like that. No, sir.
The detective also has to tackle another important detail from Chris's side, that Beverly and Daine had claimed Roberto was sexually abusing their children. Since this detail could be used in court, they want to clarify whether or not it truly happened.
So if he, because I'll tell you right now, that's what he said. He was approached and
By me.
by both of you.
Yeah, no. No.
It was
Not me.
because of something Roberto was doing to the girls.
That's
That's what he was
bullshit.
told.
But I never did nothing but love them girls. The most I've ever seen him ever do was pinch Sicily. And he would pinch her like right here for doing something wrong. So that's bullshit. Roberto never did
So you
anything
can
to the
probably-
girls.
I'm being kind of, I mean, you know what I'm talking about then, what he's told me. I mean, he said that he was told that Roberto's molesting the girls. So that wouldn't be true. And he doesn't even believe it now. He doesn't believe it
I
now.
never,
but-
ever seen Roberto, even in the 9 years that we visited him in prison, in the 8 years that he lived with us prior to him going to prison, on any visitation, the years that before Tasha and Sicily were
Doesn't seem
born,
like
that
the
I
type.
had with Robert, he never did that to me when I was a youth. He was not that kind with Sicily or Tasha, so why would I say
He
that?
didn't give that vibe. And
He was not like that. Robert is not that kind of guy, and there has to be something that Chris is confused with or something, because, or my mother approached him about it. But I definitely, and I would say till the day I died, that Robert wouldn't molest those children. And if he had, the first thing I would do is go straight to the frickin' police. Take the children to the hospital, make a record, and go to the police. Are you crazy?
And that's why, because
They're going to need help if they're molested by their father, that we can't help with.
But now it comes back to the core of Chris's interview, that he accused both Beverly and Daine of murdering Roberto and provided more details of Daine's involvement. This is something Daine needs more time to process. But in the meantime, she leans on her memory issues again.
He didn't help.
and that
either.
would be like a reason she could tell me, you know, if
Chris
she
said
was
he
trying
helped
to.
murder him.
Yeah.
Well, we did.
I can't spoon feed you everything you said, but yes. Yeah. But
No, that's not how that happened. I mean, we're sitting on the couch in that room, and she came in there and just fucking wailing.
what? I mean, we were talking about the patch thing, the concrete patch.
I don't know anything about a concrete patch.
What's that?
I don't recall anything about a concrete
Well,
patch.
you had told me about a patch where, because your mom was trying to clean up so good that she was chipping up concrete in the basement.
I just don't remember.
But no, I mean, that was something you told me the first time we met. I think the first time we went down to Texas, you told me about that, and then I went back to the house, and sure enough, there's a concrete patch. But that, Chris told me the same thing, but he said you laid the patch because you're really good at this stuff, and somebody else actually told me you're really good at like brickwork or mason.
Just tile before.
But I'm just telling you what I heard. I heard you're talented at that stuff. But he said that you did that patch in the basement. That was your work. He mixed it up for you, and you laid the patch.
I don't remember shit. I don't remember that.
Okay.
I don't even remember anything about a concrete patch, and I'm sorry.
Do you remember much of what you told me like
I
the
don't
first time
remember
we
even
met?
talking to you about a concrete patch. I'm sorry. It's probably part of my injury. Because I had
Which injury? That was the one with your
traumatic
leg.
brain injury, yeah. But I mean,
you remember us talking though.
I do remember you
because
talking,
you remember
but
things
there's
being
just-
hectic at your house.
there's things that it's like even like words, stuff. It's kind of like your mind. You know, how you put things in order in your mind. The way, okay, so these are organized like in your brain. You kind of like when you think you can find it, you go back to a vision or image and you pull it up like that. Well, it's like it's there, but it's not in the right spot. Like you're like, I know this, but I don't know how to explain it, but it's not there.
Kind of happens like that with concussions too. I've had really bad concussions.
But it affects me with writing. I'm having issues with spelling things, sentences. I find a lot of loss of words,
Like
the
putting
right,
the right
word.
words to stuff?
Yeah, the right words in
I
the right
gotcha.
sentence.
Yeah, that's what it's
Sometimes
like
I'm
then.
putting the wrong word, but there are memory losses and lapses and shit that's gone on too from the accident. But that I don't recall.
Things aren't looking good for Daine. By now, she knows Chris has come clean about everything. But will she? Since the start of the interrogation, Daine has maintained her innocence, citing her brain injury when her claims don't make sense, and repeatedly pivoting back to her mother when she can't answer questions. But these tactics are beginning to look weak. It's obvious that the detective isn't buying it, especially where her memory is concerned. After all, if her memory is as bad as she claims, why would they believe her recollection of events over Chris's? Not to mention, most of what Chris has told them lines up with information they've received from friends, family, and acquaintances of Robert, Daine, and Beverly.
I honestly don't recall shit about it.
Because he had a pretty good memory about that stuff. He remembered actually a lot of really good things.
I don't remember talking to you about it. That's the weird thing. You're saying I told you about it, but I honestly don't recall.
Okay. Yeah, that's... I'm just saying he had a good memory about everything. About a lot of detail, and that's like I was telling you that time. The more detail you can give me, something I can go and back up. Where I believe you over if your mom
The
put
only thing
handcuffs on her.
and that's what I told you, like the only one that could possibly add any more detail would be Chris, and I would think that he would do it in my favor, but
He didn't.
I didn't.
He didn't do it in your favor. And like I said, it wasn't like a way of like he was trying to put everything on you or everything on your mind. It was just like he told the story, and the cards fell where they fell, and a lot of it wasn't favorable for you. And I'm sitting there going, why did she give me Chris's name? I mean, because that kind of really ended up hurting you.
Well, I mean, I'm just being honest with you. I mean,
Okay, I'm being honest with
I've just
you.
always been that way. I mean, that was all I could do. I gave you everything I could remember and all that I could in every way that I could.
Mm-hmm.
And Chris was the only other thing that I could remember that maybe could possibly help you. I mean,
it's someday you'll see the reports and stuff, I'm sure, because there's a lot of them that I did. that Chris isn't the only person that remembers stuff, and that when his memory, when he tells a story and it matches other people that he hasn't seen in years, and it matches their story, the stuff they remember, then you got to give it some credibility, right? And that's kind of what happened here.
Okay, so we're
He's not the only one that remembers stuff. So.
Well, I mean, I'm not by no means saying that, hey, I have a perfect freaking memory, but I'm definitely not a planned, plotted murderer either.
Okay. That's what I'm just, is there another reason why this stuff would have went down besides, like what I mentioned? If, and, you know, like with your mom, she kind of wanted to go back into the, she didn't like the life she was leading. You know, it sounded like she wanted to go back into the drug.
Who didn't?
Your mom, because she didn't have a lot of money. Robert's work at delivering papers and stuff like that, and always fighting with them, and so like she was too happy. It was time to move on, but I don't know.
The only thing, and I used to tell my mother, was that it was like she resented Robert for all the years she went to visit him in prison, and that was like she resented him for it. I don't.
So
I don't really know. I don't know. Like
you don't remember being down in the basement during the murder?
Hell no. Why would I call you and tell you?
People call me and tell me way worse stuff than that. I don't know why. I don't know why they do, but you don't remember being down there when it happened. You don't remember maybe doing like a rehearsal the night before?
Oh, what?
Like a rehearsal?
No.
Like your mom directing something? Like,
no way.
Should stand here. Chris, you should be there. This is what I'll do.
No way.
What?
No way.
What, if your memory's kind of foggy, though, it might have happened.
There's no way I would even do that.
Why?
There's no way, because it's not in my character. I would never do that.
I'm not saying it was your idea.
I would
That's
never
not what
do
I'm
that.
saying.
I would never even practice play, rehearsal, joke, or f***ing kid about it. That's not my personality. No way in hell. Never.
So if your
Never.
mom wanted to do
Never. Never. I would leave.
You would leave.
I would leave. I would leave out into the street. I would call somebody, another family member or something. I would leave before I got rehearsed and plotted and planned into something like that. There's no way.
You wouldn't go with your mom on that.
There is no way. No way.
And do you remember anything about like your guys' long drive over to get rid of Roberto's body?
I've told y'all everything I remember.
And I'm just trying to jar your memory loose because I did, you know, that's what I do with some people. I'm like, remember, I don't like spoon feeding people or giving them info. But
everything I can remember, I have honestly told you. You guys have asked me, and I've told you.
and that's what we do. We'll ask the same questions over and over again, hoping that something jars, something loose, and it does a lot, and that's why I do that. But you remember like your mom bringing anything on that long trip, like cleanup supplies or anything like that?
No.
No? Gloves?
I can't remember.
Okay.
The relaxed, friendly attitude Daine had at the start of the interrogation has vanished. Fear and anxiety is beginning to creep in, and for the first time, she breaks down.
I'm asking you to remember, but I know you don't want to remember.
I really can't.
Because it sucks. I can tell Chris didn't want to remember too, because it sucks. It really does.
I really can't.
You remember? What do you remember of the night there in the basement? What do you remember of that?
I remember coming down the stairs. I remember screaming at my mom.
What are you screaming at her about?
I don't even remember. I just remember yelling at her and asking her if she was f***ing crazy. Screaming, are you f***ing crazy? What is wrong with you? And just keep screaming at her, and just kept screaming at her.
And what you saw down there, though?
I just remember seeing blood on the floor, the bottom of the stairs. I'm
As far as
really
you know,
sorry.
your mom held on to
I'm
that
really
till she took it
sorry.
back.
I'm really sorry. I
Well, I'm...
can't remember, and I really want to.
I know you don't want to.
No, I do. I want to. I want to. I want to. It's just not there. The data's not there.
Because, like, you know, I told you before, it's like, that's what I have to do is when somebody tells their story, I usually by the time I talk to them, I know, even if I play dumb, I'm not quite as dumb as I act, but I know the answers to a lot of the questions I ask, you know. And, the questions
I
I've
definitely
asked,
did. I mean, I'm fucked up that I guess you think that or that you believe that I plotted, planned, rehearsed, and all this stuff.
well,
There's really
and that's another reason, is people got reasons for everything, and there's reasons for everything, so, and I know that, I don't,
that is not something that I would do.
well,
It's just.
it looks like you were part of this, though, Daine, and that's why I'm, okay, you're part of this, then you're part of this, but why? That was the other big question. It was like, was it just because your mom's an influence, or because Roberto didn't like your lifestyle? I mean, I don't know.
The detective decides to drop one more bombshell that he knows Daine won't be able to deny, in the hopes that it will finally push her to confess.
Just looking at that concrete patch there, do you remember any of that now? About laying that patch for your mom?
I don't recall laying a patch.
I don't remember anything of that, like Chris mixing it up for you, and you...
No, I really don't.
If I told you your DNA was in that patch, you know, when you're doing something like that, you sweat, and it's so sensitive now. They're testing now, it's so sensitive. But if I told you that your DNA was in there, would that surprise you?
Yes.
It would?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it looks like yours is in there. Because that's definitely all, obviously the crime lab's in there, they're right there, but yeah, they found all kinds of stuff in there, so.
Yeah.
But even this scientific evidence tying her to the crime isn't enough to make her crack. She manages to regain some composure and sticks back to her story.
Basically what they found supports Chris's story that he told. And other people I interviewed supports Chris's story that he told. Okay, it doesn't support what you were telling me.
I've told you everything I can remember. As much as I can remember.
That's it. So I'm trying to give you the last chance here, Daine. I really am. Because I'm telling you that, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that points a little different direction. I mean, I think some of the stuff you told me was true, and I'm wondering if that's the case here. If you didn't tell me something, you want to clear up. Because, you know, when I told you that thing about telling your story and making sure, you know, anything you could say where I could go back up your story and confirm it would help. And I told the same thing to Chris.
I did everything that I could.
And I did confirm some stuff, like you really remember or not, you told me about the basement, I think about you did tell me about the chipping up at the basement and stuff. And as soon as I got home, I went to the house.
I couldn't remember. I mean, I can't remember more than what I've given you. And if that's what I've told you, that's what I told you, then, and it's helped you, then I'm glad. Because I told you then, because now I can't remember. And my accident was that traumatic. And I do suffer from that. But I've given and said all that I wish I could say more, or I wish I could remember more. For God honest, I can't.
It's clear Daine isn't going to budge, and the interrogation is almost over. But before he leaves, the detective lets her know just what she'll be facing in court, perhaps to give her one last nudge to tell the truth.
And we kind of got stuck here. We ran out of funds here.
Gotcha.
We were trying to get closer
Shit
to Orlando area, Hollywood, like that out down south more.
Oh, okay.
Down south more, Florida.
Yeah, there's probably other areas you could be then.
Yeah, we ran out of funds here,
This is
so
kind of, Jacksonville's a rough town.
Yeah,
It's
I heard.
dangerous. It's a dangerous town. Dangerous, but I don't know. Reminds me of Columbus, Ohio. If you've ever been there, so reminds me of that. But yeah. So like I said, I'm done with my investigation, and I submitted it to the prosecutor, and he gave his answer was 3 warrants for Chris, you, and your mom. And it was based off everything I gave him, and that was a lot of stuff he had to go through. So a lot of people did a lot of work on this.
Chris was charged with murder too.
Yes. Yes, he is. And he's... Yeah, and that was another thing I was going to say to you. If there's some reason why, you know, whether you know why he helped or why, you know, I don't want to see anybody take any unnecessary blame either. Definitely.
I know you probably think I'm a lying bitch, but I swear to God, I've given you all I can remember.
I think you're still holding back some stuff because it doesn't make you look good. But I also think people got.
What else?
Well, I think the truth doesn't look favorable. The truth.
The truth already is not favorable. I mean, what I've given you is not favorable. So.
Well, it's even worse. I mean, I'm just telling you what I think. Okay, that's just what I think. But I just think, yeah, the full truth is even less favorable. It doesn't make you look good, and it doesn't make you look good when you.
How does trial and all that stuff work?
Oh gosh, that's
Like when do you get? Is Chris already gone to trial, or do we all have to be there?
It'll probably be separate. Everything will be separate.
Each individual will be separate.
Yeah. But yeah, Chris is already in our jail.
She's also given a chance to see what she'll be charged with.
Actually, the highlighted stuff is, or most of the highlighted stuff is the charges. The actual charge, you got 3 charges, all relating from the same thing.
Oh my God. I think I'm gonna be sick to my stomach. Wow.
Yeah, it doesn't get more serious than that. So at some point, yeah, you're gonna have to be shipped up there. Nothing's over till it's over. Okay.
Pray that. Pray that the truth comes out and my mom finally gets what she deserves. And me and Chris don't
Right.
suffer this.
Despite looking her future straight in the eye, Daine has nothing else to say.
So,
Oh my God, I can't believe
like I said, I imagine probably anything you can think of to tell me will probably help you. So, if you think of something, get a hold of me. Okay?
it. Yeah. Thanks.
Alright. Don't thank me. But
You do
maybe,
your job.
something we can do in the future. Okay, but okay.
Daine might have maintained her innocence until the very last moment, but it doesn't change anything. Detectives have enough evidence to pin Roberto Caraballo's murder on both her and her mother. In December 2021, Christopher McMillan agreed to a plea deal and testified against Daine and Beverly in court. He was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 15 to 31 years in prison. Beverly McCallum was arrested in Italy in 2020. She was extradited soon after, and in 2024 was convicted of second-degree murder and mutilation of a dead body. In 2021, Daine Ducharme was found guilty on one count each of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and disinterment and mutilation of a dead body. She was given a life sentence without possibility of parole. Daine later tried to appeal her life sentence by claiming that it would be unconstitutional because she was only 21 years old at the time of the murder. She also claimed she had not been given due process or a fair trial. Both claims were rejected by the Court of Appeals. County Prosecutor Douglas Lloyd noted that even throughout the trial, Daine failed to take any responsibility for her role in her stepfather's murder. Today, Robert Caraballo's family received another piece of closure that it deserves. Throughout the trial, the defendant decided to continuously play the blame game. She deflected all her responsibility and placed it solely on her mother, Lloyd said in a public statement on the verdict. It's unfortunate to witness the defendant continue to not accept guilt for her actions, but I hope that the family finds a sense of justice in the outcome of this case. It took almost 20 years before the case of the Jack-in-the-Box could finally be settled. While Roberto Caraballo's remaining family has not commented publicly on the case, it's easy to imagine they have mixed feelings, particularly Roberto's daughter Sicily, who contacted the police in the first place. Not only was a man murdered for reasons we may never fully understand, but an entire family was torn apart in the process. And it's the rest of their family, particularly Daine's two sisters, who have been left to pick up the pieces.